I just wanted to ask, how do you address this within our own families? Like, for instance, I have a younger brother, and I see that he's being targeted with that kind of like stuff like social media, and that he's slowly like adopting that kind of like misogynistic thinking.
Yeah.
So how would you, like, how should I address this? Like, how could I work with my parents, like, to kind of like, I don't know, counteract that, if you could call it that?
That's a great question, and it's a hard one. Like, it's so hard when it's someone that you love and someone in your own family. I think the answer is kind of similar to a broader question about how do we approach these issues with boys. Shame is a huge part of radicalization. A sense of shame and a sense of embarrassment and a sense of kind of stigma around having difficult and awkward conversations that makes it really easy for those boys who are very vulnerable to be preyed on by these online groups. So it's really important to create an atmosphere where there isn't shame in the conversations and the discussions around it. So not to come at it from an angle of you are bad, you are misogynistic, or even necessarily immediately this influencer that you're watching videos from is bad or wrong or misogynistic, but to start from a point of just trying to start a supportive conversation. So, you know, this is interesting, you know, what are you getting from this person? Like, what interests you about them? Really, it's about getting to the root of that fear that I talked about earlier, because it is fear that will drive them into these communities and keep them there. So what you want to do is create a situation where they feel safe enough to tell you what they're afraid of. And ultimately, it is usually something like, I'm scared that someone's going to accuse me of rape. And then you can start actually having a conversation about, let's look into some of the statistics and find out how often that happens. Let's find out whether that's a valid fear. Let's trace some of the kind of money that's going on here and think about who's benefiting from these kinds of conversations. If we start from the premise that these influencers who claim to be, you know, a real voice for men and the true champions of neglected young boys, then we can ask ourselves, what issues affect boys, and are they talking about them? You could reasonably expect one of those influencers, for example, to be making about 230 videos about male survivors of sexual violence for every one about men falsely accused of rape, if they care about boys and the issues affecting boys, because we know that those are the figures. But if they're not, then what's going on there? If you've got somebody like Andrew Tate who says that depression doesn't exist, that mental health isn't real, and that you know that suicide is the leading cause of death for men under the age of 50, then there's a disconnect there in terms of his claim to be this champion for men and boys. But you can't get to that point of using logic and reason and numbers and statistics before you've started the conversation in a way that feels safe and open. And I think one of my biggest pieces of advice would be to have lots and lots of small conversations. Don't make it one huge, terrifying, awkward thing that everybody's scared of. Make it little and often so that they know that it's an open channel of communication. They know that they can come to you and they can talk to you. And that's kind of the best way forward, I think.